Welcome, angels and all, and my apologies, I'm very late today, having internet challenges. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. So I've got two stories for you. The first is that when I woke up this morning, nothing was in my brain. I couldn't think about what I could say today that would link with the process of things we've been talking about. Somehow there was just an emptiness. So I eventually thought, well, let's just test the system. I thought, well, I would start doing a podcast and something will turn up in my brain as, pressure will squirt something out. However, just before I was about to do the podcast several hours ago, quite a few hours ago, I noticed an article, a story about Anthony Hopkins on a Facebook story. I thought, that's what we're about today. So I guess part of my kind of thought today is that if we're open to coincidence, if we're open to synchronicity, then the right things always turn up. And I was open for something. I said, please just give me a story for today before I start. And it was just before I started, and there was a story popped up. And the story itself was about Anthony Hopkins when he was a very young actor, one of the first acting roles he had, and it was for a movie called The Girl from Petrovka, which sounds Russian. The Girl from Petrovka, which was written by George Pfeiffer. Anthony got the part, he got the script, but being Anthony, he wanted to get to the bottom of it. He wanted to read the original book that inspired the movie. So the book by George Pfeiffer, he went looking for it around London, and there's probably hundreds of bookstores in London, and he looked and looked and looked, and he could not find the book. It had gone out of print, and it did not exist. So he looked for several days. Well, I don't know how long, a long time. Anyway, he gave up, and he was walking down through the subway, the underground, and there on a park bench was a very worn-out looking book. It attracted him, and he walked over, and that was the book, The Girl from Petrovka by George Pfeiffer. And he picked it up, and he thought, okay, I was looking, and thank you for providing. So he took this very worn-out book, dog-eared, and had lots of writing in the margins and all sorts of things. Obviously, somebody had read it and loved it and made lots of notes in it. So he read the book and acted in the movie. And then quite a few years later, he was at the Cannes Film Festival. And his agent said to him, look, Anthony, there's somebody I'd really like you to meet. He took him over to this chap, and it turned out to be, yes, George Pfeiffer, the guy who wrote the book that he starred in the movie, and where the book turned up miraculously in a city of 6 million, that there it was in the middle of a subway. So he explained what had happened, and George was nearly in tears. He said, my God, he said, I wrote that book so long ago, and he said, my only copy, I don't have it anymore. I lent it to a friend, and it's gone. And he said that was the one copy that I had, and I'd written in the margins and done all sorts of things in it. And Anthony just stood there with his mouth open. And then explained to George what had happened. And it turned out, eventually, Anthony was able to give that book back to George. And George just about cried because it was his book. And I just think what a lovely story of synchronicity, coincidence, whatever we want to call it, just being in the flow. And apparently, according to the story about Anthony Hopkins, he was always fascinated with synchronicity and how things happen, seem to work. The right thing just happened, often at the last minute, but always in a perfect timing and in a perfect way. He was open to synchronicity. He was open to the magic of the universe. He didn't care how it happened. He just knew that if he stayed open, if he stayed curious, without cynicism, without judging, then things would happen. And he has apparently got many, many stories of synchronicities happening to him and to people he knows. What's also interesting is that he's very open to them, and so they happen to him. So he doesn't care how the universe works, or how synchronicity works, or coincidence works, whatever we call it. He doesn't care how it works, and nor do I. I know that it does. I just stay in gratitude for it, because things just happen when we are open to them, when we basically look for them without attachment. We just know, oh, this will work, this will work. Whenever we leap into something where we don't know what the answer is going to be, or the result's going to be, or what consequences, when we say yes to the universe, knowing that a good result will come from it, then it will. And it happens so often. And it happened in a little way for me today. I needed a key to talk about today. The key turned up just before I pushed the little button here. And the same with Anthony Hopkins. And I'm sure you will have story after story about coincidence and synchronicity if you're open to it. If you don't think it happens, if you think it's stupid, it doesn't work, and there's no way of explaining it, if you're trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to understand it, then it possibly won't work. We don't need to know how it works, like a car. I don't understand how a motor works. My brother's a mechanic and he's explained it to me several times. I still don't get it, but I can drive a car and I had to get in and use it. I'm not a physiologist. I don't know how the human body works and all of that sexual stuff. I don't know how things work sexually, but I am able to enjoy sex. So we don't need to know how things work. We just need to know they do. And if we know that synchronicity works, and we know that coincidence works, whatever word we use, if we know that it works and then just stand back and watch the magic happen, it happens a lot more and more and more. And the more it happens, the more we are open, or the more we trust it, the more we know that it works, the more it happens. It's this lovely, what's the word? The spiral that goes down. Well, this is one that goes up. What's a vicious circle? Well, this is the opposite of a vicious. This is a loving circle, let's say. The more we believe in it, the more we trust in it, the more it happens, the more synchronicity happens, and the more open we are, the more that the universe can give us those lovely moments. And sometimes they lead us to amazingly big things. So I simply wish you a day of coincidence, synchronicity, and the magic. I bless you and I wish you peace.